Welcome everyone to the annual general meeting and annual review of the Bristol cycling campaign. Can everybody hear me? Always want to check, great, always want to check the technology. My name is Nick Davis and I'm the current chair. It's been quite a year for the campaign and for cycling. It isn't always understood, fellow members of the campaign, that we're an entirely voluntary body. We get no funding, no grants from central or local government. We rely entirely on you, our members and our volunteers. It's been a ferment of activity over the last year. Started with a fantastic AGM with Simon Monk as our speaker, the infrastructure campaigner from the London Cycling Campaign. Simon was excellent, and it was a real event with human beings present in person at Create Centre. It continued with the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, and then a global pandemic and the first lockdown. Perhaps good things can come out of bad things. We saw a massive surge in numbers cycling, as well as some strangely and agreeably silent roads. We then had an exciting announcement of government money and plans for active travel. And following our lobbying, Bristol Council and the West of England Combined Authority put in some fairly ambitious funding bids. So congratulations to both mayors, Rees and Bowles, for that. And it also, furlough produced many new activists and many new members for the cycle campaign, and some new campaigns relevant to what we do in livable neighbourhoods in Bristol and Cycling Works Bristol, both of which you'll hear about later. We ran 3 webinars. This is our 4th this year, with 100 odd attendees for each. And in the summer, Bristol Bridge was closed to private motor vehicles, and a few pop-up cycle lanes even went in, and a few wider pavements. Last week, new funding for some more permanent measures, including some closures of roads to motor vehicles, 12 closures in Bristol, was announced. So the momentum and the money is there, but we need to continue with encouragement and pressure. So we now have almost 450 members, and you'll see from this slide, our membership has increased steadily over the last 18 months or so. It's been a real surge, almost 50% over those 18 months. So what does that bring? 600 members by November 2021, a really ambitious target. But it's great that this is not just a COVID phenomenon, and we also have many more supporters who subscribe to our periodic newsletter, and over 5,000 followers on Twitter, and also active Facebook and Instagram accounts. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me get to the business of this annual review. If you want to ask any questions, please put them in the chat, and we'll come to them at the end in the question and answer session. We will also have elections later on for the appointments to our committee for next year. At that stage, if you are not a member, would you please just turn off your video and wait that out. We'd much prefer that you joined. You can go on our website and do that straight away. But any member should not please participate in those elections, and we rely on your integrity for that. Anyway, without more ado, let me pass you on to Tom Swithenbank to start our annual review.
Good evening, everyone. So this is not exactly the start of the year, but it's the start of where things really kicked off in terms of our sort of progress as a campaign since the spring. So I wanted to start with an annual survey that we ran. This was a really effective exercise for us. We had over 700 responses. We promote, a lot of those people hadn't heard of the campaign, so it was a great exercise to promote the campaign, but also to get some real feedback. We had a volunteer called Zach, and I don't know if you're on the call now, but thanks to Zach, he did a lot of work to help us analyze that data. And this is just a map of the respondents that kindly gave their postcode, just to show where they are in the north of the city. If we click over to the next slide, this is where they are in the south of the city. So clearly there's a big difference there between those survey respondents. Why that is, there's probably many reasons, and yeah, if you've got any sort of suggestions or thoughts, put them in the chat. It's clearly something that we need to focus on in coming years. I probably spent a couple of days reading the comments about things that we could do better. One of the questions was, what could the cycle campaign do better, or words to that effect? And if we go to the next slide, we've got some examples of things that people put as their comments. So yeah, we've got there 734 responses, 53% were not aware of the Bristol Cycle Campaign or what we do. Probably the main themes that came out, I've just put on the bottom: raise the profile, be more inclusive, improve social media, set some goals. So clearly things to think about. But yeah, that was a really interesting start to the year. And if we flick over the next one, this is just a bit of a summary of some of the things that sort of we've achieved on the communications and engagement side this year. So in May, our Twitter impressions were 260,000. We've increased our Twitter following, I think, from around 5,000 to 5,500. The income revenue is a record for the cycle campaign, despite the membership being free. The way this system works is it's free to join, and if you want to donate £5, £10 or more, you can do. And obviously lots of people very kindly did. We've ran 200 people at our webinars. We started off with the future of cycle campaign and cycling in Bristol, with Dan Kelly as a guest speaker from Walthamstow. Then we had sort of the review of the summer and a report on healthy streets. We've then had our road justice webinar, and that was really well attended as well. We've got a new website due in January, and rather than the once monthly meetings, we're now meeting twice. Obviously not meeting in person, but Zoom has given more people the chance to attend, which is great, even though obviously it's a shame not to be able to meet in person. Okay, next slide. So this is something that hasn't happened, even though this is an annual review. This hasn't actually happened yet, but it's in the works. So at some point over the next couple of weeks, you'll start to see some posters appearing around the city. This is a bit of a sneak preview of the poster. We were taking the opportunity to work with a local Bristol company who had some poster sites, and we've got a local artist who's quite well renowned in that world, has produced these brilliant posters for us. And the idea is really to just draw attention to the fact that all the plans that have happened, that are in the planning, all the active travel measures that have been put in are not a sort of done deal and are under threat. And it's just to ask people to use the hashtag, to follow the story. They'll be able to go onto our website, be able to go on to hopefully the websites of other partner organisations like the Walking Alliance, and take some action to make sure they contact their councillors, fill in the petitions and such to make sure we don't blow this opportunity. So keep an eye out for the posters and use the hashtag on there. Next slide, please. So this is something else that we've been involved in. We, at the very beginning of the year, maybe even the end of last year, we got involved in a Sustrans organised sort of workshop, bringing different organisations together in the city. Not just cycling organisations, but many different organisations. That then became Livable Neighbourhoods for Bristol sort of petition and website, and that's then become a sort of wider campaign. So we're working with Clifton Climate Action, Walking Alliance, and many different organisations to try to push for livable neighbourhoods or low traffic neighbourhoods in the city. So we've had some political engagement, we've created working groups, and if you want to find out more, go on the website and obviously follow on social media. And the idea is that really we want local people to join working groups and then create that sort of ground up support. Okay, next one. So this is just a quick slide. I think we'll have to hit some bullet points. There we go. Just on our volunteers, obviously, as Nick says, we are all volunteers. This year's, I think, been quite interesting, as we've seen maybe when people were on furlough, they had a bit more time, but quite a few people come forward to use the skills that they have in their job to help the cycle campaign. So Zach is, I don't exactly know what he does, software, IT, help with the survey analysis. We've had Alex, who's a transport planner as his day job, who has been helping with the Livable Neighbourhoods campaign and put together some work for the cycle campaign earlier in the year. And that we'd like to continue into next year as well. We'd love someone to lead our sort of public relations and marketing effort. We'd love a website copywriter who can sort of turn some of our ideas into articles for the website. A personal favourite, I'd love someone to liaise with, or some people to liaise with bike shops so that our members can get something in return in terms of discounts from bike shops. And then there's a sort of wider city campaigns, school streets and livable neighbourhoods that people can get involved in as well. Next slide. And that's you. That's the end of my bit.
Yeah, next slide over to me.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, hi everyone. Great to see so many familiar names in the list there, and a few unfamiliar ones as well. So thanks everyone for coming. I'm going to give a quick overview of what we've done this year in the Space for Cycling part of our campaign, which is probably one of our more prominent campaigning areas, where we're essentially asking for better cycling infrastructure around the city, which is something that's clearly very important to enabling more people to be able to cycle. Just to show the principles that we set out earlier this year, this was particularly in the context of the COVID cycling measures, but it's something really that's general to what we do. In our first principle being that we listen to the community, which is everybody here, and everybody on Facebook, on Twitter, and everybody out there in the city who doesn't directly connect with us as well. It's understanding what people want in terms of cycling infrastructure and where the pain points are for most of you. Second thing is being honest and constructive in our critique. So if the council proposes something and we think it's a bit rubbish, then we will tell them we think it's a bit rubbish, but also we'll be constructive, and we'll tell them how they can make it better and why there's something wrong with it and what might be the solution. And finally, the third principle is that although we can be known to complain quite a lot about things, there are a lot of things which go in our favour as well, and that we should be careful to make sure that we celebrate successes when they do happen, when we get some infrastructure that is well designed and in the right place. So in this short part of the presentation, I could easily spend the whole thing talking about the Emergency Active Travel Fund and the temporary pop-up cycle lanes and things we've seen with COVID. But we have to remember that there was a life before lockdown, and actually the year that this AGM covers started a long time before that. So I just want to highlight some of our success stories, firstly, that are not directly related to the COVID measures, and also highlights, I guess, some of the things that maybe our members might not always be aware of because they happen a little bit behind the scenes. So one of the first things we did this year was engaged with Sustrans on the railway path consultation. So the Sustrans were allocated some funding to rejuvenate some of the railway path on the section closest to Bristol. They put out a whole range of proposals and held workshops and all sorts of things. Put out lots of designs. It's and I won't be too critical because I know that John Usher's on the call. I know that it's fair to say we were quite critical of some of the designs, and probably because our main concern was that in places it was a little bit form over function, and we were keen to see the physical space for cycling being created as much as possible, rather than spending money on nice art and designs and that kind of thing. So we tried to engage positively with Sustrans. We created this dossier, I would call it, the Bristol Cycling Campaign's response to the railway path consultation. And I have to thank Philip Bird, who's on the call, for compiling that and putting that together. It's fair to say it's a robust response. I think it's 35 pages long, so it goes into a fair amount of detail, and as I mentioned, it's really trying to be constructive and say what we think the solution should be, even if we don't agree with it. We then went on to meet directly with Sustrans and discuss those plans even further, and some of the result of that is seen in the more up-to-date plans that they've released for the work to be done on the railway path. Then the next big job, which came thick and fast after the railway path, was the LC WIP, which is catchily named. That's to the uneducated amongst us, that's the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. It's not the most exciting document, and possibly one which was difficult to get the public excited and engaged about, because it was a very large and complicated document and it doesn't have any direct specific proposals. There is no funding behind getting any of this stuff built, but it's the council's policy document which shows which routes and which corridors they want to focus on for cycling over the next, I think it was something like 16 years, some random number like that. So although it wouldn't directly affect anything that was about to be delivered within the next year or so, we were clear that it was very important in terms of setting the long-term policy, so it needed to have a robust response. So thanks to everyone who engaged with us on Facebook, on Twitter, and through various means. We put that together into this consultation response document, which again was 35 or 40 pages or something like that. Went into quite a lot of detail about all of these different routes that the council proposed, and also the ones that we thought were missing, and any measures we thought were inappropriate as well. And we know that since then the council anecdotally has agreed with a lot of the comments that we made, and they're going to be updating the LC WIP in line with the comments from us and many other people as well. Then just a couple more specific ones. Some of us in the Space4cycling group spend way too much of our time, I would say, trawling through planning applications that come into the Bristol Council portal, and trying to work out whether they have any impact on cycling or not, or if there's any way we can get an impact, a positive impact on cycling from different planning applications. So this one is from Ashton Sidings site, which you probably haven't heard of, but it's on the Festival Way, in between the Brunel Way flyover and Ashton Court Park, where you currently go past some allotments. That whole site is due to be redeveloped for some mid-rise housing, as you can see on here. And currently the cycle path goes along a nice route which would skirt the edge of this site and then reaches the flyover. Now the developers of this site propose to reroute the cycle path, and well, it's so complicated you can't even really see it on the picture, because it goes through quite a few right angle bends directly through the middle of a car park, and this kind of thing. And for an important cycle route like the Festival Way, that clearly was a big downgrade. So we submitted quite a simple but effective objection to that one. And although the planning application still hasn't been decided, it's been delayed for some reason. The quote on the right-hand side is from the Bristol Council City Design Group, who've clearly been paying attention to comments from the likes of us, and they've agreed essentially that it's completely unacceptable and that the developers need to go back to the drawing board. So it's good to know that we are listened to places like that. Then Bonnington Walk. Now I know this development can be controversial for many reasons, but we're really just focused on the cycling aspect and making sure if that does happen that the cycling part is done correctly. So this is on the Concorde Way near to the Lockleys Sports Centre. I'm sure many of you cycle up that way. They'd proposed a minor upgrade to part of the Concorde Way as it goes through that site, upgrading it to 5 meters, but not all of the way through the site. We couldn't quite work out why. Now, since the Concorde Way is so important and the site itself would increase the amount of cyclists on it, we pushed to have the whole cycleway alongside that section of the site upgraded to a 3 meter cycleway and then a separate 2 meter walking path as well. And it seems like, again, the council has agreed with us. So the plans have been updated and a number of conditions have been imposed on the developer, such as installing what we call tiger crossings, so parallel crossings with like a zebra and a cycle crossing next to it at both ends, and also more separated cycleway along to Dovercourt Road as well, and some speed bumps to make it safer when you're at that crossing on Bonnington Walk. And we know we were listened to because in the council's own responses from their transport development department, we get quoted directly and they refer to our comments. So, you know, it shows that a little bit of thought from a few people that going into a couple of pages of response can have a significant impact on a cycle route. So the work that's done by the Space4cycling team is very important. So that's a couple of success stories. Then I guess onto a story that's hopefully still in progress, the Emergency Active Travel Fund. So as Nick said earlier this year, we had some very positive announcements from the central government about what they were going to do about cycling and how important cycling was. And there were two main documents that they released, which are quite important in the cycling world, shall we say. First one is called Gear Change, which is more of a strategy document, but it sets out how the central government feel that cycling infrastructure should be implemented and how it should be integrated into new developments, and alongside all new road building as well should come with cycling built in as standard. And also setting out that minimum standards will have to be met, basically. And then those minimum standards are set out in the second document, which is the LTN 120, as we refer to it, Cycling Infrastructure Design. I've got my copy here by my side all the time because I'm a nerd. But this is a really long-awaited document in the cycling infrastructure world, and basically sets out the detailed design of what a good separated cycleway should look like in a whole heap of different situations. And it sets the blueprint for what cycle lanes should look like. And in this first document, the government is saying, if you build a cycle lane, it should meet the requirements of the second one. So we now have this tool that we can use when we're responding to applications and consultations and these things. We can directly say, well, it's not according to the guidance, so you shouldn't be building it like that. You should be building it like this. So it's really helpful. So with the small amount of funding that unfortunately Bristol was allocated from central government, which we can't actually blame the city council too much for, these are the measures which have been achieved so far. Bristol Bridge and Baldwin Street has been pretty well publicised in the news. That's had quite a significant impact on that area. Clearly on the ground, you've still got big wide roads, even though they're empty, but we're hoping that, you know, once that's made permanent at the beginning of next year, that they'll then be able to reconfigure the roads and give us some proper space for cycling across Bristol Bridge and make it a more pleasant environment to be in. Lewins Mead, as we know, has been controversial. We had the first lane which was put in for a couple of months in the kind of middle lane of the road, which was great in terms of that they were prepared to dedicate a whole traffic lane to us and take away that space from the cars. But it was bad in the sense that it was very difficult to get to the beginning of it, and it was very difficult to get off of it at the end. So it was quite a flawed implementation. Again, so that's changed now, but we're hoping to see further changes, positive changes to that again in the future without going into too much detail. We've got stuff that's gone in on Park Row, Lower Magdalen Street, Mina Road, and the counterslip as well, which is all temporary measures at the moment. But what we're most concerned about right now is that the space has been taken, the space has been reserved. The council did have to deliver that on a really shoestring budget. So we've spent quite a lot of time working with them to try and improve what's there within the limitations of the money they had. But it's, you know, we recognize that there are quite a lot of flaws in those lanes at the moment. But yeah, the space has been taken away, whether that's from traffic lanes or parked cars, and it's not going to be given back again, which is the key thing. So when more funding comes along, which it's started to come along now, we'll see those measures improved and built in a more permanent way, which should be a lot better. This is what it looks like on a map, although this is slightly out of date. The green stuff is the existing cycle network that was there before, with the bright green being the good stuff and the sage green being the okay stuff. And then the blue stuff is what they proposed, so it's either gone in already or will be going in as part of these emergency measures. So we were quite pleased that it has started to join up the cycle network a little bit more. Of course, we want far more than what's gone in, and that's in order to achieve that, we're certainly going to have to do a lot of lobbying, and that's, we lobby Bristol Council to do the implementation in the right way. We have to lobby WECA to allocate the funding, because that's where a lot of the money comes from, and we also have to lobby the central government to allocate the funding to WECA. So you can see how complicated our job might be in that regard. Yeah, that's a very, well, hopefully it was quite a quick review of Space for Cycling this year. Now I'm going to pass over to Julie, who's joined our campaign this year and is going to tell us about a little mini campaign that she's been running herself. Julie, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thanks very much. So Bristol City Council needs to drastically increase its cycling provision in order to tackle the climate emergency, safety during the pandemic, and our poor air quality. But a vital piece of cycling infrastructure is being overlooked, namely bike hangars. Bike hangars, as you can see in the picture, are lockable steel pods that bolt down on the road at the curbside and provide secure bike parking at home. Each hanger can take 6 bikes and it's smaller than a car. However, the council currently plans to provide a total of only 35 hangars, which would be parking for only about 200 bikes. But survey data and the number of households living in terraced houses or flats with no outside space to store a bike indicate that tens of thousands of Bristol residents may need bike hangars. And there's a social justice aspect to this. The people on lowest incomes are hit hardest by the lack of provision because they most needed a cheap form of travel. So we've drafted a report for the council proposing that Bristol should install at least 1,000 hangars by the end of the next mayoral term, starting now. Also, we found, using data from London, that protective bollards aren't cost effective and concrete bases aren't needed for hangars. So we propose that Bristol City Council no longer installs these things with hangars, which would cut installation costs by 1/3. And we propose that the council proactively provides hangars rather than waiting for residents to come forward to speed up rollout and make things fairer. I think hangars are tremendously important in getting Bristol cycling, and I'm very grateful to have been able to develop these proposals with the help and support of the Bristol Cycling Campaign. I started researching the problem from a base of zero knowledge, but had the most amazing help. Campaign members told me everything from the price of a cheap bike. They took photos of a hangar for me. They pointed me at statistics and gave me strategic advice. They gave me all sorts of help. The people in the cycling campaign are great. And if anybody watching has a campaign idea, then get in touch and the cycling campaign can help get the wheels turning for you, pun intended. Thank you.
Thanks,
So
Julie.
we now pass on to Ian from Cycling Works Bristol.
Okay, thanks, Nick. Hi, everybody. I'm another newbie to Bristol Cycling Campaign this year, prompted by social media outreach during the lockdown period. So I've no background in campaigning, but one of the things that the campaign was looking for was mobilising the business community in Bristol to get involved. And that's something I've worked in for a long time, and I felt I had something to offer, and put my hand up and volunteered to lead this campaign. Another example, I think, of where the campaign's encouraging people to get involved and take things forward where you think they're important. So, as I say, the Cycling Works concept is based on a concept that was used in London, and some people may be aware of that, in a time when London was building its first cycling superhighways, as they were called at that point. And there was a significant lobby group that said that cycle lanes were bad for business, and a group of individuals sort of work to get businesses involved in that. So this is all about mobilising employers to speak up for cycling infrastructure, and that's what we're trying to do in Bristol. The rationale for that is very much around saying to businesses that allowing your staff the option to commute by bike in a way that's safe and easy is really important, and therefore it's a staff health and safety issue, and as such you should be involved. And we're also obviously leveraging environmental goals and corporate social responsibility goals, and also the fact that staff recruitment, retention, and even travel resilience, particularly through a pandemic period, is really important in that. So the next slide, please. So you heard about the LC whip earlier, and the adoption of the LC whip back in June was really important to this, because clearly we needed to get a point where the regional local government had said, this is our plans, and then we're inviting business to express their support for that. And so within the LC whip and the strategic plan for the region, we working with the cycling campaign and the expertise of people like Toby, focused on what could be some key goals that create an end-to-end holistic, better commuting to work proposition. And so those were, there are 50, as you heard earlier, 55 routes in the LC whip. The risk is that we'll spend the next 16 years building a piecemeal rollout of 55 cycleways. I think if we want to change cycling and have it perceived more realistically as a mode of transport, then it's important that continuous protected cycling corridors are put in place, just like they were in London. And so these routes, as you can see on the schematic map there, are about connecting the city with enterprise and business zones around the city, around the outskirts, with transport hubs like park and rides and train stations, but also through residential neighbourhoods. Now, clearly, you can't cover every area, but this is about trying to cover all quarters of the city as a priority. The second priority is around park and rides. So for people living further afield, and particularly at the moment where public transport is restricted, it seems rather crazy that people don't have the choice to bring their car to a park and ride and cycle to and from there, avoiding public transport and obviously helping with congestion and everything. And at the moment, due to various reasons, that's not supported in most cases. And we want all current and all future park and rides to embrace cycling as a mode of transport to be used from there. And the third thing is around, again, the end-to-end aspect. If more people are bringing their bikes into town, then bike theft, as we know, is a serious issue in our city. Then we need to have both additional but also more secure on-street and off-street parking. And at a point when we're pedestrianising more of the centre, then there's an opportunity to do that. So the third slide, please, Toby. So where have we got to? We launched the campaign in July, and I'm very happy that we worked with key partners on this, being North Bristol SUSCOM, who had been working on the concept previously, based up in North Fringe, Filton area, and representing 35 businesses in that area. Business West, the regional business representation organisation, as you can see there, Green Capital. 7net, representing companies in the Severn-side, Avonmouth area, and also Sustrans. And they've been influential in terms of the steering committee and reaching out to businesses. At this point, we've got 39 companies signed up. Each of these companies have written letters of support, and they represent probably around 20,000 employees across the city, or across the region, really, rather than just the city. And now what that's done is it's given us a mandate to speak with WECA, to speak with Bristol Council, to speak with South Gloss, and promote the goals. And I'm very happy to say that it's been incredibly well received, and it's recognised that having the support of business for cycling is an additional stakeholder, an additional lobby group, and certainly at a point in the future when, as backlash grows, as inevitably it will, as we've seen in other cities, that having business on side is really important to that. So, yeah, I think my message now is, if you can't see your company listed here, and you believe your company is promoting cycling and encouraging you to cycle to work when you can, obviously, please do reach out to us. I've got the web address and my email address for the campaign on the slide here, or reach out through the cycling campaign. But thanks very much for the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. And we now turn to Brock Horning for Instagram. Brock.
Hi everyone. So just like Ian, I was new to Bristol Cycling Campaign until the start of lockdown, and my speciality is in social media marketing. So on the marketing side of things, I wanted to what we essentially have started on the Bristol Cycling Campaign Instagram is the opportunity for individual cyclists in Bristol to showcase their thoughts, opinions, and their photos on cycling in Bristol, so that we can really bring together the community behind Bristol cycling and the campaign as a whole. This really kind of came about to challenge the stereotypical view of cyclists that I think we all are kind of very aware of, and maybe kind of humanize that mass term cyclists as made up of individuals who have very valid reasons for wanting extra cycling provision. I also wanted to showcase the diversity of cyclists in Bristol, and highlight and challenge that view that cycling isn't for everyone, because of course cycling is the great equalizer. So making sure that we're promoting a whole range of cyclists across the whole city was very, very important. And really to just create an inspirational space where real stories can be provided and people can really share their opinion, because as previous speakers have said, Bristol Cycling Campaign is made up of every, the thoughts and feelings of every cyclist in Bristol. And I think it's important that we showcase that in our marketing efforts. So to quickly sum up what we've achieved so far, so we're going for 6 months, and we've got to we're a couple off 1,000 followers, so that's a great start with no paid advertising at all. We've got 52k impressions, a nice healthy engagement rate. We featured 32 Bristolians. So my message for everyone here is if that you would like to follow along, please do follow us on Bristol Cycling Campaign on Instagram. And the invite to share your thoughts and feelings with the Instagram community and the wider community is always there to everyone. And if you'd like to get involved and share your thoughts and photos, please just drop me an email on brock.hunting@gmail.com. But otherwise, thank you very much, and that's all from me.
Thank you, Brock, and thanks for all you've done for us on Instagram and some great photos. And can I now turn to the sort of official business with Martin, our treasurer, and our financial report, please.
Hello and good evening, everyone. So very quickly, don't want to bore everyone too much with this or excite you too much even, but in April 2019 we started our last financial year, 2019-20, with about £11,000 in the bank. We had income of £4,000 membership fees and donations, and spend of £3,000 left us with a bank balance of nearly £12,000 by the year end. Our spend that year mainly focused on publicity and promotion, with the updating and the printing of membership leaflets and an overhaul of our public stall, which was used at several events in the spring and summer of 2019. Spend also went on maintaining our online offer, including a two-year deal on website hosting. Room hire and refreshments was a significant portion of spend in that year, with the need to have a welcoming space to invite special guests to our Space4cycling infrastructure meetings. And travel costs were a factor in our activities in 2019, in the days when we could attend cycling conferences across the country. Finally, that year we incurred handling charges on our PayPal account, which I think is a small price worth paying for the convenience of members being able to sign up and renew online, as we've actually seen this evening, if you've been following the chat. In the current financial year, so that's just from last April to now, our activities obviously changed radically due to the restrictions of the pandemic. We're no longer spending money on travel or room hire, having moved our activity almost entirely online. Our highest expenditure so far this year has been on the designing and printing of posters for the #Don'tBlowBristol campaign, which Tom was mentioning earlier. We've also been out promoting ourselves, having printed hundreds of our cycling stand stickers, which have gone all over the city. This year has seen more investment in our online presence, with work developing a new website, which hopefully is due in January, as well as some paid advertising on Facebook to help bring in new volunteers and members. So as a result of our promotional efforts and making savings on travel and room hire this year, as well as something of a windfall, our current bank balance is now higher than ever, sitting at over £14,000. This is due directly to an increase in paid membership levels. That's in spite of the fact that people are offered a 1 year's free membership, but they seem to be very generously donating anyway, which is great. And also £1,700 coming from the Bristol Bike Festival, who very generously granted their remaining funds to us after sadly deciding to wind down their operations this year. So the question now is, how should we best invest the money that we have in the bank in furthering our objectives? So please put comments in the chat. And if you're really interested in all this, there's further details of the accounts which you can see on the website. So over to Nick, thanks.
Thank you, Martin. And yes, as Martin says, our accounts are available to view on the website. And now we should turn to the election of officers, and that is up on the slide there. I am retiring as chair this year, and we're also looking for to appoint a new secretary. So to the business. Can I have please the person proposed as chair of co-chair of the campaign, is firstly Tom Swithenbank. Would anyone please propose Tom? If you just raise your hand. Thank you, thank you. Would anyone second Tom? Thank you. And we all elect Tom? Great, just wave your hands please, thank you. And with Toby Wells, who's standing as vice chair, co-chair with Tom. Can I have a proposer please? Yes, thank you. Can I have a seconder please? Thank you. And elected? Thank you. Martin is standing again as treasurer. A proposer please? Thank you. Seconder please? Thank you. And elected please? Great. And secretary, a new secretary, Liz Daniels. Will somebody propose Liz please? Thank you. Will somebody second Liz? Thank you very much. And Liz elected? Thank you. Great. And we have 5 people who are all present members of our committee or officers. That's Alex Martin, Eric Booth, Mark Bruff, me and Richard Williams, who are all proposed to stand for the committee. Can they be elected by acclamation? Please. Thank you very much. That's great. Now, if anyone else wants to join us, we usually expect you to have 3, 4, preferably 6 months of engagement with us and campaigning. But then, if you've got the skills and just the commitment, we would be delighted to expand our committee, and we can co-opt people between AGMs. So please let us know. Put your email in the group chat, and we can invite you to join our activities on Slack, which is really how most of our campaigning takes place these days. So let me turn to closing the AGM, to giving thanks and summing up. So if we could move to the next slide, please. Yeah, good. So can I mention our Road Justice group, because they've done some great deal of work. What they do is liaise with the police. They did a webinar a month or 2 ago, and they've done some really good work on meeting with the Superintendent Brickwood, who is the new Avon and Somerset Roads Policing Officer, and getting on side with him. They're going to meet with him again, and they're working on the submission of camera footage on close passes and road incidents, which the police, you can submit it via their website, and there are issues about reporting to people, complainants, and not keeping them informed of what's happened, and they really are working on that, and they're really interested to hear from people as to, you can contact them via our website, our contact forms, people who have dealings with the police or have road traffic incidents. You know, we are trying to get segregation, as Toby has said, between bikes and vehicles, but realistically, most of us are going to be cycling on the roads for many more years to come, a lot of the time. So please, that is an important aspect of what we do, and it's important that people engage with it, please. Tom has mentioned our appeal for active members. If you want to get more actively involved, please put your email on the group chat. We can contact you. We also want to run campaigns for both mayoral elections, both WECA and Bristol City Council next year, and Tom will talk more about that. There are 2 retiring committee members who are Rob Harding and Andrew Goff. Rob has concentrated on road justice and will continue with that. Andrew on South Gloucestershire, which actually is important because it links up to Bristol, and he will continue with that. but they're both retiring from the committee. So I really want to thank them for their work over many years. They've both been on the committee for more than 5 years. So fantastic work from Rob and Andrew, and thanks to them. I also want to thank Blaise Kelly, who is moving to the cycling heaven of Holland, and who has done our infographics and various website posts over the years, and is really knowledgeable on clean air. And we hope that Blaise will continue to be involved. And thanks to him. So thanks to all of you for attending. Thanks to all our volunteers. Thanks to our speakers. And I leave the campaign in really good hands in Tom and Toby, a new generation, and two very enthusiastic guys. And they, as you've seen tonight, they complement each other. One focusing on the space for cycling, the hard stuff, if you like. One focusing on the community engagement, the soft stuff, if you like. I think that the cycle campaign is in better shape than for many, many years. And I think there are things going on in central government and in local government which are very much in our favour. So I hope that we'll look back and remember 2020, not just for COVID-19, but also as the year when cycling was finally accepted in this country as a legitimate mode of transport, which you had to plan and design for in the same way as we do roads and buses and trains, and not just fitted in as was done in Bristol in Cycling City, wherever there's a bit of leftover space, and that you actually have to sort of design and think around it. And I hope that 2020, when we look back, will be seen as the year where that started. So thank you all very much. And any other business, please put that in Slack, and I'll pass you on to Tom for next year.
Okay, thank you. And obviously a massive thank you to Nick, who has been involved for so many years in the cycle campaign, on Space for Cycling, and chair, sometimes being chair when probably he didn't massively enjoy being chair and was desperate to look at some consultation documents instead. So yeah, a massive thanks to Nick for all his hard work, and yeah, we look forward to working with Nick, obviously as we go forward, and we'll be turning to him for his advice, I'm sure. So this brings us on to next year. Lots of things will be going on, but we just wanted to put up a few bullets on the next sort of bits of focus. So, as been raised in the chat, and I'm sure has been raised over a number of years, we need to increase the diversity of the campaign. So that really needs to be the number one priority. I think diversity in many different forms needs to come. I think ultimately we want the cycle campaign as a whole to be reflective of the population of Bristol. That's going to be a challenge, but I think that's the vision that we want to have, and that will hopefully give us more influence with the administration, so they don't just think, we're a bunch of whatever. So that's got to be a priority, and we want to set up a diversity action group and try to bring people together to help with that, people that have experienced with that in other organisations. We want obviously the committee to be more representative of Bristol. We want the volunteers who are writing consultation responses and things to be more representative of Bristol. So that is a big focus. I think there's a sort of perception that cycle campaign groups around the country are doing what they're doing to help people that already cycle, whereas maybe that's, there's a certain irony that that's just not the case. Most of us that are on the committee, for example, are happy cycling up and down Gloucester Road and down Park Street, but our work is for people that aren't comfortable doing that or aren't even comfortable getting on a bike at all. So I think that's something we really need to sort of grapple with next year, to show that we're trying to work for people that that don't even have an interest in cycling even because they feel it's unsafe. So the rest of the priorities probably speak for themselves. Obviously, we want to engage with politicians of all parties. There's the mayoral election for Bristol City Council and for the West of England Combined Authority. We'd like more people to engage in our consultation responses. As we said earlier, we'd like to develop a membership offer so that our members receive something back as a thank you, some form of discount, but that is quite a piece of work to get bike shops on board and committing to something. We'd like more people to engage with the road justice side of the campaign. We had a really good meeting a couple of weeks ago with some really good engagement. And yeah, we'd like to know, I suppose, from you what our priority should be as well. I mean, what should we be focusing on? Bike theft's a massive issue this year in Bristol. It seems like you can basically just cut through a bike lock with an angle grinder, like cutting through paper with a pair of scissors nowadays. So that's become a massive issue. Dangerous driving. Is there a certain cycle route where you live? Is there something that you'd like to focus on? And yeah, so don't do it in isolation. Sort of follow, hopefully, the model that we can have some projects where people follow the model that Ian and Julie did, where they had an idea and we helped it get going or offered some support. And obviously we have contacts with people in the council and around the country that can get things going. And we want to hear different voices from different parts of the city. To reflect back on that map from the very first slide, there's a massive difference between the people that responded to the survey in the north of the city and the south. So yeah, we want to hear voices from all around the city. That, I think, brings us to the end of the campaign annual review. I think what we want to do now is look at some of the questions. So I can see some in the chat. We'll go to Mark's question first. This is probably one for you, Toby. Are you there?
Yep.
Has any work been done in Bristol to promote more one-way roads to improve cycling? I know some thoughts around one-way roads.
Yeah, so yeah, one-way roads are one item in the arsenal of someone looking to find space for cycling, because you can remove the lane that goes the other way and use the space. So yes, it's something we look at. Ultimately, it's not up to us to make the final decisions, but we'll use that as a tool to propose for sure.
We've got a question from Benjamin. If officers and developers spent time in Holland, they would know how to design good cycling infrastructure. This is probably a question for you again.
Sorry, say that again.
If officers and developers spent time in Holland, they would know how to design cycle infrastructure? I mean, is the lack of knowledge one of our big issues, or?
We don't think it actually is at the moment. Yeah, visiting Holland and stuff is great to see. It's more to see the benefits of what can be done, because you can see, the amount of people cycling. You can see how much more pleasant it is, but because of different traffic rules and different regulations in the UK, it's often difficult to directly try and transpose the sort of detail of the design. But what I will say is that we've spoken to a number of officers recently about this LTN 120 document, and most of them are really excited about it, because for a long time, a lot of them have wanted to deliver like really good quality modern designs, but they haven't had anything they can refer to say, this is why I've chosen this design. But now they've got this toolkit which they can use, and actually they are genuinely excited. So I don't think the issue with quality has always come right from the officers themselves. It's kind of the in-between layer, shall we say.
Okay, thank you. We had a question from Rob, which was for Julie, and we will put it to Julie. Is there a problem with theft from the bike hangers? My interpretation from the conversations we've had with Julie is that it's not an issue. I don't think her work would have gone as far as it has if she'd have heard that, you know, if you put a hanger outside with 6 bikes in, it's just sort of open to theft. So yeah, I don't think it has, but we can certainly ask Julie. I don't know, Toby, if you want, if that reflects what your thoughts are.
Yeah, you'll get to see it when Julie's report is released at some point in the next couple of weeks, because she's gone into some significant detail on everything to do with bike hangers.
We've got a comment here. Could we work with the police regarding attacks and thefts on the Bristol to Bath path? I think that's sort of reared its head again over the last couple of weeks. That's probably not something we've touched on, to my knowledge, over the past couple of years, but it certainly could be if perhaps someone wanted to, or a couple of people wanted to act as a sort of liaison between Bristol Cycle Campaign and the police on that, and the council. That would be really helpful and really, hopefully really useful to sort of act as a voice of people that use that path. I know there's a Facebook group, but often one of our bugbears in the cycle campaign is Facebook groups can be lots of comments, but not necessarily a sort of end result of action. So yeah, certainly would welcome that. What else have we got in here? We've got we've got a comment around a active travel commissioner like they have in Liverpool, Manchester and Sheffield as part of their combined authority. Toby, do you have any thoughts on the role of an active travel commissioner?
If it's done in the right way, in that they actually have real direct responsibility for something, then it's a great idea. And we've seen that in particularly in Greater Manchester. There have been similar roles introduced elsewhere, where they had great people in those roles, but they were ineffective because they actually had no power over anything. So yeah, all for the idea as long as it's done in the right way. Yeah,
probably I would echo that, and they need to have some funding to back up. You know, if they're just shouting just for their demands and they know that they're not going to get anywhere, they will probably be resigning fairly quickly, I would imagine. We've got a comment from British Cycling. It'd be great to work with them. Ian's made a great comment about a cycling buddy scheme, which London Cycling Campaign do. That would be something really interesting that if we could get that going. I know that Life Cycle do some training and things like that, so we'll probably seem to try to work with them. Parking in bike lanes, that is something we are looking at on Gloucester Road, but it's very difficult. The enforcement is very difficult. I think we've sort of struggled to get a commitment from the council to enforce specific locations, even though there are obvious specific locations where it's an issue on Gloucester Road, sort of Stokescroft, Cheltenham Road. Any other questions? Let's have a look. Yeah, a comment from Martin Fodor that most cycle lanes are only advisory, so it's not actually the parking in the cycle lane that is illegal, it's the parking on the double yellow lines. It's almost irrelevant that they're in a cycle lane unless it's mandatory. Does anyone have any further questions? Let's have a look. I think we've got a few people offering to help and get in touch. We've been running our communications via a system called Slack, which avoids endless emails, which has been really good. We've got a comment to say that Dan Cox wanted to say something from Avon and Somerset Police. Can we give him the power?
Yeah, I can do that. 2 seconds, Dan.
This is very brave of us. Who knows what he's
Yeah, this is not planned.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. It was lovely to sit in the meeting, actually. You mentioned my boss, if you like, that you had a meeting with earlier on, the superintendent, he's actually the head of neighbourhood policing and road safety. Okay, so my role, I sort of took it on temporarily in February, is the road safety officer for Avon and Somerset Constabulary. So a little bit about me, really, and how I can interact with you more, is that I've spent the last 23 years in the force. The last 17 years I've spent on roads policing as a specialist and dealing with all the fatalities. And a lot of those fatalities I've probably been to in excess of 200. A lot of them are cyclists. And during that time, I've spent my entire time cycling, racing, running cycle clubs, Somerset Road Club for a long time, the treasurer, membership secretary. So it's quite funny listening to a meeting, really, because it brings back memories. So it was simply to say that you will not find more dedicated, passionate people about cycling, which are sat right within the organisation of Avon and Somerset Police. So we don't need persuasion. We're very, very driven to transform things and to change all aspects of road safety. It isn't just cycling. I might add, you know, we're having more issues with motorcyclists dying at the moment, but the two together are my priority. I'm a VIP motorcyclist as well, so I can take the same amount of knowledge, you know, to that area. So as far as I'm concerned, you've got our support, you've got our attention. There's a limit to what we can do in any one thing, but cycling is at the forefront. And what we'd like to see is better use of our systems, you know, to update dash cam, cycle cam, and it's flying, it's flourishing, it's doing really, really well. There are limitations on the administration at the moment as to it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. But I would like to see that escalate rapidly, really. I want to see more people with dash cameras. We're promoting it all the time, fitting cars out with dash cams shortly. We'll have cameras on horses shortly that will loan out. So you can see this is going to be a big increase for us. So the administration of it is going to have to change, but we don't want to bury the unit so it can't cope with its normal collisions and everything else. So that side of things, and also to touch upon, you know, I go out on my racing bike. I went out this morning. I nearly froze to death. It was really, really cold. I've been spat at, pushed in the hedge. My bike kicked. All the things that you could imagine. The differences between you and I and many other cyclists is that I go to work. I get in my traffic car. By tea time, I'm in their kitchen and they're eating humble pie and getting prosecuted. Okay, so I know what it's like to be on the roads, and I know the aggressive nature of most, but I can also see some improvements, mild improvements at the moment. So it's it's just a case of letting you know who I am, how we can help. Damien, who I work alongside with, I believe some of you may have had some contact with, he's a very, very keen cyclist as well. So perfect scenario, really.
Thank you, Dan. That's really helpful. And there's a summary just gone in the chat, about 10 points up from you of the summary of the last webinar, and some actions. Philip's just asked how people can contact you if they want. So I don't know if you want to pop.
Yeah, it's fairly straightforward. What I would say is try and go through a point of contact within your organisation. But my email address is the same as everyone else's at Avon and Somerset Police, but my full name, which is Daniel, DANIEL .cox, COX. But you get 200 to 300 emails a week at the moment, because I've taken on a role that's been, how can I put it, hasn't been as busy as it should have been. So we're transforming the whole road safety department. If you look at our virtual 999 day, I look at our Twitter feed, it's come from literally nothing to massively increasing, and we're trying to take on many different areas, older drivers, younger drivers. There's a lot of work to do. So all I would say is, if you're going to contact me directly, make sure it's really important, or you've gone through a point of contact in your organisation, because it's just like the administration of the dash cam, it can slow things down. And that leads me on to one thing, really, in that there's been mentioned a few times on various forums about being a victim. and getting victim updates. And, you know, people need to sort of decide really. In an ideal world, we haven't got hundreds of people sat in an office processing all this footage, and we're not the Metropolitan Police. Okay, so it's almost, would you rather process the footage and deal with twice as much and keep increasing that, or personalize and get back and give people details? And in my mind, this is my personal opinion, I deal with the most horrific incidents every day, and what I would consider, you know, whole families that are victims, and the reason why we've got, you know, witness care and victim and all the, you know, the victim care associations, where yes, I go out on my bike and, you know, I'm a hardy soul and people, you know, kick my bike or play me up or whatever, but I don't consider myself to be a victim. I don't worry about it too much. I update probably as much footage as anyone else from the cameras that I have on my bike, and I don't care what the result is. You can just assume that if someone's too close to you, they're going to get dealt with. A 50% prosecution rate, that's massive. You know, that's huge. And statistically, when you look at that with regard to prosecutions of fixed penalties that an entire force can put out, it's quite quickly, from dash cam, cycle cam, and all the other cameras, we don't really care, mobile phones, it's quickly going to exceed the work rate of a police force and the available time. Because being in my traffic car for the last 17 years, I could be the only traffic car going around in the county. People don't understand how low the numbers have become. Okay, so it's just bearing in mind that if we have to go through processes that grind us to a halt, we're not going to be able to deliver what we're actually looking for. And what we're actually looking for is, you know, to educate people and make them understand about the vulnerabilities of cycling. But as I've experienced, there's some people you will never educate. There's some people that don't care. There's some people that are just aggressive, whatever the reason is. You're never going to change them. And for those, they need to fear. They need to be worried that wherever they go, they're going to get filmed. And we're going to deal with that. So it's having a balance of where we put our resources. And I would suggest anyone that puts their resources into constant updates and that feedback, they will grind their system to a halt, and we need to be concerned about that. We'd rather have your footage and deal with it.
Okay, thank you, Dan. That was really helpful. And I think, like everything, that the ideal position for the cycle campaign over the coming years, and as it has been in the past, would be that people contact us with a specific issue, whether it be hangers, Bristol to Bath, you know, cycle path issues or road justice issues, and then we can feed that in to the relevant contacts. And Eric's just put the email address, roadjustice@bristolcycling.org.uk, in the chat. And yeah, looking forward to working with you on that, Dan. Okay, we'll bring this evening to a close. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We're looking forward to being co-chair of the campaign and working with Toby. Whether Toby is looking forward to working with me, I have no idea, but that we'll see. We might be doing another AGM in a month's time. But yeah, thank you everyone for coming. We'll probably keep the session open if anyone, and sort of open up the mics if people want to stay on and ask questions in a put your hand up form. But yeah, thank you so much for everyone for coming, and do get involved any way you see fit.